As of March 2026, a staggering 181,396 human beings in California are standing at a deadly breaking point, and you might be closer to joining them than you think. Did you know that in the world's fifth largest economy, a full-time worker earning minimum wage can no longer afford a basic one-bedroom apartment in any county? The golden dream has officially turned into a living nightmare. We're not just talking about people in tents. We're talking about nurses, teachers, and seniors forced to live out of their cars while luxury high-rises sit empty and silent. Why is the safety net suddenly shredding into pieces? Why are record-breaking budgets failing to save even a single soul? From the terrifying rise of the gray wave to the hidden foster care cliff, the reasons behind this collapse are as shocking as they are preventable. Stick with us, because what you discover in the next few minutes could be the ultimate survival guide for your community's future and your own. Number 1. The affordable housing deficit. The affordable housing deficit is the silent engine driving California's 2026 crisis. We aren't just short a few apartments. We are facing a staggering 1.2 million unit shortfall that has effectively broken the housing market. Imagine a game of musical chairs where 100 people are competing for just 24 available chairs. That is the reality for low-income families today. Scientific research from the California Housing Partnership confirms that when housing supply fails to meet demand, homelessness isn't just a possibility, it's a mathematical certainty. This shortage has obliterated the missing middle, leaving young professionals and working parents with nowhere to go as luxury developments sit empty and overpriced. This deficit creates a dangerous rent-burdened cycle that traps everyone from 25-year-old graduates to 65-year-old retirees. In 2026, spending over 50% of your paycheck on housing has become the new normal, but it's scientifically unsustainable for long-term well-being. When your financial margins are this thin, a single medical emergency or a car breakdown can trigger a fast downward spiral toward the streets. This constant financial pressure keeps your body in a state of chronic stress, releasing cortisol that wears down your physical health and mental productivity over time. It's not just about losing money, it's about the debilitating mental toll of living in survival mode every single day. To protect your lifestyle, you must understand that outdated zoning laws are the primary bottleneck holding our state back. Practical, immediate steps include advocating for infill housing and accessory dwelling units, ADUs, in your own neighborhood. Whether you're a senior looking to house a caregiver or a young professional seeking your first studio, these granny flats offer a realistic, high-impact solution to the crisis. By supporting zoning reform, we can help slash the bureaucratic red tape that currently makes building a single home cost hundreds of thousands in fees. Taking action now ensures that the California of tomorrow has room for everyone to thrive, not just the ultra-wealthy. Number 2. The stagnant wage trap. The stagnant wage trap is the second pillar of this deadly breaking point, creating a reality where working hard no longer guarantees a roof over your head. While California's cost of living has surged by nearly 40% in recent years, median wages, when adjusted for inflation, have remained shockingly flat. This creates a purchasing power vacuum where your paycheck buys less food, less gas, and certainly less housing than it did a decade ago. For a 25-year-old starting their career or a 50-year-old supporting a family, the math is becoming impossible. In 2026, even individuals working 40 to 60 hours a week at essential jobs are finding that their total income cannot meet the 3x rent requirement demanded by most landlords. The science behind this economic stagnation is rooted in a phenomenon known as the productivity pay gap. Research shows that while workers are more productive and tech-savvy than ever, the financial gains from that productivity are largely staying at the top of the corporate ladder. This leaves the average adult in a state of financial fragility. When your income is stagnant but your rent increases by 10% annually, you are effectively taking a pay cut every single year. This leads to hidden homelessness, where professionals are forced to couch surf or live in their vehicles just to maintain their jobs. The neurological impact of this instability is profound. Constant financial anxiety reduces your ability to focus, making it even harder to perform at work and climb out of the trap. To break free from this cycle, you must focus on financial resilience and high-leverage skill acquisition. In today's volatile market, relying on a single source of income is a high-risk strategy. Practical steps include diversifying your income through side hustles or freelance work that utilizes digital tools to reach a global market. If you are a senior or a working parent, look into lifestyle auditing, identifying and cutting invisible costs while maximizing tax credits and local assistance programs. Education is your greatest defense. By staying ahead of technological trends and advocating for fair pay policies in your workplace, You can better protect your lifestyle from being swallowed by the widening gap between earnings and expenses. The 181,396 lives hanging in the balance are a wake-up call for us to protect the stability of our homes and our future. We put massive effort into uncovering these research-backed truths for you, so please support our mission by hitting subscribe. It's just one click, but it keeps this vital information free for everyone. Don't stop here. Watch our previous video linked on the screen to learn how to build your own financial fortress in this volatile economy. Number 3. The erosion of the safety net. The erosion of the safety net represents a delayed impact disaster that is finally hitting its peak in March 2026. During the height of the pandemic, billions of dollars in federal and state aid, such as eviction moratoriums and emergency rental assistance, acted as a temporary dam, holding back a flood of homelessness. But today that dam has officially burst. State funding for homelessness has plummeted from a peak of $6.9 billion to just $500 million in the latest budget cycle, a staggering 50% cut to the core programs that keep people housed. This massive withdrawal of support has left over 181,396 Californians staring into a vacuum where help used to be, proving that a temporary fix cannot solve a permanent structural collapse. The science behind this crisis lies in the lag effect of social safety nets. Research shows that families don't usually hit the streets the very day a benefit expires. Instead, they spend months burning through their meager savings, borrowing from relatives, or skipping meals to pay the landlord. By 2026, those internal reserves have been completely exhausted. Data from the California Budget and Policy Center suggests that the loss of federal food and health assistance under recent legislation could push as many as 3.4 million people toward the brink of poverty. When you remove the basic pillars of nutrition and healthcare, the resulting financial shocks become impossible to recover from, creating a vicious cycle where a minor health issue quickly escalates into a total loss of housing. To navigate this landscape, you must become your own safety net architect. In 2026, waiting for government intervention is no longer a viable survival strategy. Practical steps for adults of all ages include proactively auditing your eligibility for local nonprofit grants and community-based support systems, which are often more agile than state programs. If you are a parent or senior, focus on building community resilience by joining local mutual aid groups or cooperatives that share resources like childcare and bulk food purchasing. Understanding that the system is currently in a retraction phase means you must prioritize debt elimination and high liquidity savings now. Advocacy is equally vital. Demand that local leaders prioritize permanent supportive housing over temporary shelters to ensure that every dollar spent creates a long-term solution rather than a short-term band-aid. Number 4. Mental health and behavioral gaps. The mental health and behavioral gaps in California represent a profound failure to care for the vulnerable, directly contributing to the 181,396 individuals at risk. Roughly 25% of unhoused Californians suffer from severe mental illness, yet the state faces a staggering shortfall of nearly 8,000 psychiatric beds. This treatment vacuum means individuals in crisis are often boarded in emergency rooms or cycled through jails rather than receiving specialized care. For a 30-year-old in a mental health crisis or a 60-year-old facing cognitive decline, this lack of infrastructure makes recovery nearly impossible, creating a revolving door of instability. Scientific research shows that the trauma of homelessness itself worsens psychological distress. Living in constant hypervigilance keeps the brain's fight-or-flight response permanently activated, wearing down cognitive resilience. Studies indicate that unhoused adults develop geriatric conditions 20 years faster than those with homes. This premature aging, combined with a lack of consistent therapy, leads to trimorbidity, the co-occurrence of mental illness, physical disability, and substance use. Without a stable home to serve as a base for treatment, medical interventions are likely to fail, leaving individuals trapped in a cycle of worsening health. To bridge these gaps, we must prioritize care-first models. Practical steps include supporting the CARE Act and Proposition 1, which aim to provide thousands of new treatment beds. Advocate for mobile crisis teams in your city to ensure experts, not just police, respond to behavioral emergencies. On a personal level, prioritizing your own mental well-being and supporting low-barrier clinics that offer both housing and healthcare is essential. Treating mental health as a fundamental human right makes our communities safer and more productive for everyone in 2026. Number 5. The Senior Gray Wave. The Senior Gray Wave is perhaps the most heart-wrenching dimension of the 2026 crisis, as Californians over the age of 55 have become the state's fastest-growing homeless demographic. Many of the 181,396 people currently at risk are retirees who worked their entire lives, only to find that their fixed incomes, like Social Security, cannot keep pace with skyrocketing rents and medical inflation. In 2026, the standard Medicare Part B premium has surpassed $200 for the first time, effectively swallowing up any modest cost of living adjustments. For a senior living on a razor-thin margin, a single increase in utility bills or a new prescription copay can be the final nudge that leads to an eviction notice. The science behind this trend reveals a terrifying reality. On the streets, 50 is the new 70. Research from UCSF's Benioff Homelessness and Housing Initiative shows that the stress of housing instability causes the human body to age prematurely. Unhoused individuals in their 50s often exhibit cognitive impairments, mobility issues, and chronic illnesses typically seen in people 2 decades older. Furthermore, seniors experiencing homelessness face a mortality risk 3.5 times higher than those with stable housing. This biological toll makes it nearly impossible for older adults to bounce back once they lose their homes, as the physical and mental demands of the shelter system are often too rigorous for their aging bodies to handle. To protect yourself or your aging loved ones, you must prioritize proactive housing security. Practical steps include exploring shared housing models, where seniors live together to split costs and provide mutual social support, which is scientifically proven to reduce loneliness and improve health. If you are a younger professional, help your parents review their long-term care insurance and legal protections now. Ensure they are aware of local eviction defense programs specifically designed for seniors. By advocating for shallow subsidies, small monthly cash grants for the elderly, we can prevent thousands from hitting the streets for the cost of just a few $100s a month. Number 6. The fentanyl and addiction crisis. The fentanyl and addiction crisis has evolved into a lethal force that is fueling the 2026 breaking point. While substance use is often a consequence of the trauma of living on the streets, it is also a massive barrier to getting off them. In 2026, synthetic opioids like fentanyl have become so potent and widespread that the transition from a recreational mistake to a life-threatening dependency happens in the blink of an eye. This crisis creates a revolving door, where individuals cycle through short-term detox programs but end up back in the same environment that triggered their use. For the 181,396 people at risk, the presence of these drugs in encampments makes every day a gamble with death, complicating outreach efforts and community safety. The science of addiction in 2026 focuses on the neurobiology of despair. Research shows that chronic stress and housing instability actually rewire the brain's reward system, making it much harder to resist the numbing effects of powerful narcotics. When a person lacks the basic security of a locked door and a bed, their brain prioritizes immediate survival over long-term goals, a state that drugs exploit with terrifying efficiency. Furthermore, the 2026 drug supply is frequently contaminated with xylazine, tranq, which causes severe skin lesions and resists standard overdose reversal treatments like Narcan. This adds a layer of complex medical needs to an already overwhelmed social service system, making traditional shelter-first models nearly impossible to manage without specialized medical staff. To combat this, we must shift our focus toward recovery-ready housing and accessible treatment. Practical steps for you, whether you are 23 or 65, include supporting harm reduction programs that provide clean supplies and testing kits, which are scientifically proven to reduce the spread of disease and prevent fatal overdoses. Carry Narcan and know how to use it. In 2026, being an active bystander is a life-saving skill that protects the health of your entire neighborhood. If you or a loved one are struggling, seek out medication-assisted treatment, MAT, which combines FDA-approved medications with counseling to provide the most successful path to long-term sobriety. By demanding that treatment be available on demand, we can break the grip of addiction and give people a real chance to reclaim their lives. Number 7. Systemic barriers and the wealth gap. The systemic barriers and the wealth gap are the invisible walls keeping a huge portion of the 181,396 at-risk Californians trapped in a cycle of poverty. Despite California being the world's 5th largest economy, it suffers from the highest poverty rate in the United States when adjusted for the cost of living. This isn't an accident. It's the result of decades of redlining and exclusionary policies that have prevented minority communities from building generational wealth. In 2026, we see this manifest as a massive disparity. While Black Californians make up only 6% of the general population, they represent nearly 40% of the unhoused. This systemic tilt means that when an economic storm hits, Those without a financial cushion, inherited from their parents, are the first to be swept away. The science of intergenerational poverty explains why some people can't just work harder to escape the streets. Research shows that the wealth gap is not just about income, it's about assets. A family with home equity or savings can survive a job loss, while a family living paycheck to paycheck is one emergency away from total collapse. Studies from the Brookings Institution highlight that children born into the bottom 20% of the income scale have a significantly harder time climbing out due to lack of access to high-quality education and professional networks. This stickiness of poverty means that by the time an adult reaches age 30, their economic trajectory is often already dictated by the systemic barriers they faced as a child, creating a permanent class of at-risk individuals. To dismantle these barriers, we must focus on economic inclusion and fair chance opportunities. Practical steps for viewers include supporting fair chance hiring, giving qualified individuals with past struggles or gaps in their resume a real shot at a career. If you are a business owner or manager, look into mentorship programs that specifically target underrepresented youth to help bridge the professional networking gap. On a personal level, increasing your own financial literacy and teaching it to the next generation is a powerful way to build a defense against systemic instability. By advocating for reparative housing policies and investments in underserved zip codes, we can ensure that the California dream is accessible to everyone, regardless of their starting point in life. Number 8. Domestic violence and family breakdown. Domestic violence and family breakdown are the silent catalysts pushing thousands of women and children into the 181,396 at-risk category in 2026. For many, the home isn't a sanctuary, it's a site of danger. When a survivor decides to flee an abusive partner, they are often forced to choose between personal safety and immediate homelessness. In California's hyper-expensive market, the safety net for these families is stretched thin, with shelters frequently operating at 100% capacity. This crisis is especially acute for parents between the ages of 25 and 45, who must balance the trauma of relocation with the necessity of keeping their children in school and maintaining a job. The science of trauma-informed care reveals that the instability of fleeing violence has a devastating impact on the brain's development and long-term health. For children, experiencing domestic instability leads to higher levels of adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, which are scientifically linked to chronic health issues and reduced economic productivity in adulthood. For the adults involved, the chronic stress of being unhoused and on the run impairs executive function, making it harder to navigate the complex paperwork required for social services. Research shows that without a stable, rapid rehousing solution, survivors are 60% more likely to return to an abusive environment simply to provide a roof for their children, perpetuating a cycle of harm. To protect the vulnerable in your community, you must advocate for survivor-centered housing models. Practical steps include supporting local organizations that provide emergency hotel vouchers and legal aid for restraining orders, which act as a critical bridge to long-term safety. If you are a young professional or a working adult, consider volunteering for mentorship programs that help survivors rebuild their financial independence through career coaching. On a personal level, knowing the warning signs of domestic abuse and having resources ready to share can save a life. By prioritizing flexible funding, grants that survivors can use for anything from a security deposit to a car repair, we can ensure that no one is forced to choose between a violent home and a cold street. Number 9. The foster care cliff. The foster care cliff is a tragic systemic failure that funnels thousands of young Californians directly into homelessness every single year. In 2026, the transition from state care to independent adulthood remains a deadly breaking point for youth who have no family safety net to fall back on. Every year, roughly 4,000 young adults age out of the system in California. Without the guidance of parents or the cushion of generational wealth, many find themselves standing on the street with their belongings in a trash bag the day they turn 21. Statistics show that nearly 31% of foster youth will experience homelessness by age 26, making this demographic one of the most predictable and preventable segments of the 181,396 individuals currently at risk. The science behind this cliff is rooted in developmental psychology and the concept of emerging adulthood. Research shows that the human brain, particularly the prefrontal cortex responsible for long-term planning and impulse control, isn't fully developed until the mid-20s. Most young professionals in their early 20s rely on the bank of mom and dad for rent deposits, co-signing leases, or emergency car repairs. Foster youth, however, are biologically and socially expected to perform as superadults without any of these supports. Studies indicate that this premature forced independence triggers high levels of cortisol and chronic stress, which can lead to survival-based decision-making that prioritizes immediate needs over long-term stability like college or career training. To prevent this collapse, we must invest in extended foster care and specialized transitional housing. Practical steps for you include supporting organizations that provide supervised independent living placements, SILPs, which offer a bridge between care and total independence. If you are a professional or a senior, consider becoming a mentor or a CASA, court-appointed special advocate. Research proves that having just one stable adult relationship can radically increase a foster youth's chances of staying housed and employed. For the 23 to 35 age group, advocate for policies that provide guaranteed income pilots specifically for former foster youth. By closing the gap between age 21 and 26, we can turn this cliff into a ladder, ensuring these resilient young people become productive members of our community. Number 10. Policy and zoning bottlenecks. The final reason for California's breaking point is the policy and zoning bottleneck, a bureaucratic red tape nightmare that makes building a single home nearly impossible. In 2026, outdated exclusionary zoning laws still restrict over 70% of residential land to single-family homes, effectively banning the apartments and duplexes we desperately need. It can take 3 to 5 years just to get a permit approved, adding hundreds of thousands of dollars in regulatory taxes to the price of a single unit. This isn't just a paperwork delay, it is a structural barrier that keeps 181,396 people in tents instead of bedrooms. The science of urban economics shows that when cities make it difficult to build, the existing housing becomes a luxury good. Research proves that every 10% increase in permitting delays results in a 6% increase in local homelessness. These bottlenecks create an artificial scarcity that drives up everyone's rent, from the 23-year-old starting their first job to the 65-year-old on a fixed income. When NIMBY, not in my backyard, policies stop density, they aren't just preserving the neighborhood. They are scientifically driving the displacement of the workforce that makes the neighborhood function. To fix this, we must demand streamlined permitting and by-right housing. Practical steps include joining YIMBY Yes in My Backyard, groups that advocate for building homes near transit and jobs. If you own property, look into SB 9 and SB 10, laws that allow you to add units to your lot with less red tape. For the 23 to 65 plus audience, the most powerful tool is your vote in local elections. By supporting leaders who prioritize housing density over parking lots, we can finally break the bottleneck and build a California where everyone has a place to call home. The 181,396 people at risk in California aren't just statistics. They are our neighbors, co-workers, and friends. Whether you're 23 or 65, the stability of our community depends on solving these 10 systemic failures. We have the research and the tools, now we need the collective will to act. If this deep dive opened your eyes, please like and subscribe to help us spread these vital insights. Comment below with your age group and your thoughts on these solutions. Check out our next video for more on building financial resilience in 2026. Together we can turn this breaking point into a turning point.